Hi guys, my name is Himanshu and today we will be discussing regarding Azure Firewall. So to start with, let me open my presentation. So what is Azure Firewall? Azure Firewall is a security service that is used to protect our compute resources running in Azure. Azure Firewall comes with three models: basic, standard and premium. So whenever we create a virtual machine in Azure, by default we can access everything. Internet is open in that machine. And the reason is when we see the effective routes configured for that VM, what we observe that that one of the default route is associated in the route table of that virtual machine, which has complete access to the internet. We will see it. So first, let me create one of the virtual machine in Azure network. So to start with, let me open my Azure portal. To open the Azure portal, we will log in into the portal.azure.com and I will log in into my account. So first, we will go to the resource group and we will create one resource group. We will create a resource group with the name TC underscore East underscore USA. Let this be in the region East US and we will click on Review plus Create. The validation is passed and we will click on Create. When the resource group is created, now what we will do, we will create a network. Now to create a network, we will go to Home and we will click on VNets Virtual Networks, click on Create. We will create the network in the TC underscore East underscore USA group, resource group, and let us give the name of the network as TC underscore East underscore USA underscore network underscore A. Click on Next, Next. Let us give the name of the network as underscore subnet underscore A. Click on Save. Click on Next, Next. The validation is passed and we will click on Create. The network is created. Now what we will do, we will create one virtual machine with the name test VM1. To create a virtual machine, click on Virtual Machines. Click on Create as your virtual machine. Resource group, we will select this one. Name of the virtual machine is this one. I do not need any kind of infrastructure redundancy. It will be security type will be standard. And I will create one machine with 2022 data center edition. We will go with the Azure Spot discount and the username should be tcadmin PASWORD @ 123 123. Then we will click on next. We will select this type as standard because it is a lab. Click on networking. This network is fine. Click on review plus create. Deployment has been submitted. So the deployment is complete. Let's go to the resource. Let me connect with this virtual machine. Click on connect. I will enter the password and I am logged in. So I am logged in into this virtual machine with its public IP address over the internet. So let me try to open the internet from this virtual machine. So as we can see that internet is open and I can access any of the website. Let me quickly disable the firewall of this VM. So we are able to access the internet from this virtual machine. So in a sense, this virtual machine is completely exposed to the internet. It is a very big concern in the corporate network or whenever we are working in a production environment. And the reason we are able to access everything, all the websites from this virtual machine is because in when we created this virtual machine, then let's see the reason why internet is open on this virtual machine. So if we click on the network settings and we go to the NIC properties and if we go to the effective routes, so if we see here by default this 0.0.0.0/0, this route is added and its next hop is internet and the state of this route is active. So what happens is whenever we create a virtual machine in the Azure environment, internet is open by default. So it is a very much it's a very big security threat that the new virtual machine that we create into the Azure environment is completely exposed to the internet. So to overcome to this situation, let me go to my next slide. So in today's demo, what we will do, we will just cancel this effective route so that this virtual machine should not be accessible through internet, or any of the website should not be accessible through this newly created virtual machine. Rather, what we want is we need to control the security in the Azure environment. So to do that, what we will do, we will create one firewall, and the traffic that was directly going to the internet through the effective route, we will make this effective route as inactive. And what we want now is we will create one Azure firewall, and what we want is that all the traffic that should, instead of directly going to the internet, it should go via firewall. So, so to achieve that, what we will do, we will create one firewall, and then we will create one route table. And that route table, what we will mention in that route table is that all the routes, we will create one route table also, and we will associate that route table with the firewall, and we will associate that network with the route table, so that all the traffic must go through the firewall. And then with the help of a DNAT application and the network rule, we can put some restrictions over the compute that is in our Azure environment, so that the threat can be minimized. So as of now, what we saw, that we can directly access this virtual machine over the internet. But now what we want to do is we will create one DNAT rule. And what will happen with that DNAT rule? I will be accessing this front face, the external interface of the firewall, and then in the backend it will point to the private IP address of the virtual machine on the port number 3389. So whenever I will do the MSTSC on the public IP address of the firewall, then it will take us to the internal IP address of the virtual machine. So let us create one firewall in the Azure. But before we create the firewall, we need two interfaces to be created. One is internal interface and one is external interface. And we can only create the firewall in the Azure environment when we will, for that, before that, we need to create two subnets for the firewall. So click on the subnet and click on Azure Firewall. So this interface will be for internal interface that will connect with the VNet. So click on Add. It's created. Now we need the external interface also. So to do that, we will click on this firewall management and click on Add. So now both the interfaces have been created. Now we will go to Home, and now we will click on Firewall. Then we will click on Create. We will select the resource group as TC underscore East underscore USA, and then we will give the name of the firewall as this one. The availability region is East US is fine. Availability zone, I don't require it because it is just for the testing purpose. The firewall SKU, I will go with the standard one. And about the firewall policy, let me give it a name. We will give it a name as TC underscore East underscore USA underscore network underscore A underscore firewall underscore policy. Click on OK. Then we will use the existing virtual network, and here it comes. And then in the virtual network is this one. Then the public IP address, we need to create it. This public IP address will be the external interface for the firewall, and we will give it a name like this one and click on OK. I don't need, let me disable this firewall management nick. Click on next, review plus create. The validation is passed and we will click on create. So now our firewall has been deployed. Let's click on go to the resources. So this is the public IP address of our firewall. Let us note it down. And this is the private IP address of the firewall. Let me go to my presentation. So now what we will do, we will attach our subnet with this firewall, and to attach this subnet with the firewall, first we need to create one route table. So to create a route table, let's go to the Azure portal once again and click on route table. Let us search for this route table here. Click on create. Let's select the resource group, and we will now provide the name to the route table. Then click on next, next, and click on create. Go to the resource. Now we will add the route to connect this route table with the Azure Firewall. Let's give the name of the route name as this one, and the destination type will be IP address, or the destination IP address would be 0.0.0.0/0, and the next hop will be virtual appliance. It means the Azure Firewall, and the next hop should be IP internal IP address of the firewall, which is 10.0.1.4. Now, what we have done, we have associated our route table with the internal interface of the firewall, and now we will connect our route table with the subnet. So to connect with the subnet, click on the subnets, click on associate, and this is our network, and this is the subnet that we will associate with the route table, and then click on OK. The moment we will associate our route table with at the moment we will associate our subnet with the route table, since now the subnet is associated with the firewall, so this virtual machine we have connected through the public IP address, it will be disconnected, because the moment we have connected our virtual network with the firewall, everything is blocked in the firewall. So now if we have to access this virtual machine through firewall, we will create one DNAT rule. So in this DNAT rule, what will happen whenever we will connect with the public interface of there is a external interface of the firewall, we will in the backend it will connect to us with our virtual machine on RDP port 3389. So first we will go to our firewall, then click on the policies. In this policy, we can see our DNAT rule, network rule, and application rule. So we will click on the DNAT rule, click on add a rule collection, and then we will create the DNAT rule with this name. The priority of this rule, let us give it 100. And the name that we will give to this one is rule collection name would be this DNAT rule. We will give it a name. Source type will be IP address, and the source would be star, or it can be a public IP address of my laptop as well. Then in the protocol, it should be TCP, and the destination port should be 3389, that is RDP, and the destination firewall IP address should be the firewall public IP address, which is this IP address. And then translated type should be IP address, and this should be the private IP address of our virtual machine. That is 10.0.0.4, and the translated port should be 3389. Now we will click on add. So now our DNAT rule is configured. Now I will access this virtual machine with the public IP address of the firewall. So to do this, let me click on MSTSC, and this is the IP address, external or the public IP address of my firewall. Click on connect. Now we need to provide the username and the password of the virtual machine. Click on yes. So we can see that now we are able to connect to our virtual machine in Azure. So basically from my laptop, I have RDP, the public IP address of the firewall. And finally, with this help of DNAT rule, I am able to connect to the virtual machine in Azure. But now let's go to the application rules. So now let me try to access Google. Now I'm not able to access any of the website because the default route 0.0.0.0/0 is now inactive. Let us see. Let me go to my virtual machine, click on network settings, go to the network interface, click on effective routes. So now this default route, when we created the virtual machine in the beginning, this was active. Now this is invalid. Rather, our new rule firewall is in place, and what it says is that the instead of virtual machine directly going to internet, now it is going to this internal interface of the firewall, and in the internal interface of the firewall everything is blocked. Now if we have to access the websites, then what we need to do is we need to open the websites in the application rules of the firewall policies. To do that, let's go to the firewall once again, click on firewall, go to the policies and click on application rules. Now we will create one application rule to access the websites. We can create a rule to access specific websites, and we can create a rule in which we can access all the websites also. So to do that, click on add a rule collection. We will give the name of the rule as this one, and the priority be 200. The collection group should be application collection group, and we will give it a name like this one. And we will give the source as this subnet. So in the protocol, we will give it like HTTP, comma, HTTPS, and then in the destination, we will give it a star so that all the websites should be accessible. Now we will click on add. So now the application rule has been successfully created. Now let us go back to the virtual machine. And now we will try to access the any of the website once again. Wow, everything is now accessible because we have put star, which means everything is accessible. Now we will discuss about the network rules. So let me go to my virtual machine and then now then let us try to ns lookup this google.com. To do that, open the command prompt in administrative privilege with admin privileges. Now type this command and we will see what happens. Now what we observe is that we are not able to do the ns lookup to the Google DNS. We are getting request timeout, but we can allow this network to be open. So to do that, what we need to do is we need to open the UDP port, which is 53 for DNS in the network rules. So to do that, let us go to the network rules, click on add a rule collection, and let us give it a name. And the priority, let it be 300. The collection group should be the network rule, and then we will give it a name like ping DNS, something like that. The source type should be IP address. We'll give it a source like this. Protocol will be UDP, and the destination port should be 53. And the destination, we will give it a destination of the Google DNS. Click on add. Now we have allowed the Google DNS on port number 53, UDP port number 53. So now once this rule will be created, we will be able to NS lookup the Google DNS. Now the network rule has been configured. Now let us go back to our virtual machine once again and let's try to do the NS lookup for the google.com. And now you can see that now the network traffic for this specific Google DNS on the UDP port number 53 has been allowed and we are now able to resolve it. So guys, this was my small knowledge that I have shared with you. If you are new to my channel, kindly subscribe, and if you like my videos, please press the like button. Thank you.